Hey, welcome. I pray you're all doing well out there, and I'm doing great here. I'm here in West Palm Beach, Florida, and it's relatively much nicer weather than the rest of the country. We're not coming out of a winter because we don't have winter here in West Palm Beach, Florida. But it's going great here, and I just have some questions I want to answer. I'm just trying to find a nice spot to position because of the sun. There we go. So I have a question about somebody recently dying on a raw food diet. That they said, how do you explain Mango Wodzak recently dying of clogged arteries on a raw food diet? And I'm going to do my best to get back to these questions and find out what you want to know and answer these questions, which I do quite often. But this is a question that uh, I'm sad to address, but I will address it. To be honest, I didn't know who this person even was until a couple of days ago. And of course, when somebody who's popular or in the raw food movement or eating a raw food diet gets sick or dies, all of a sudden everyone brings up questions like this. Why did he die if he was eating raw? Like, first of all, my heart goes out to this man's family, and apparently he has a partner who survived, and she is living now without him. So my heart goes out to that situation whenever anyone dies. Uh, I feel really bad for the people that survived the situation because they got to deal now with the loss of a loved one. So my heart goes out on that level. But why does somebody die eating a raw food diet? I believe in the Bible, and I believe in creation. I believe in our Creator. And I'm trying to live as long as possible myself. I'm trying to live as high as quality possible. But there's one thing that across the board, everyone's going to agree with, whether if you're a different religion, whether you're a different type of diet, whatever. There's one thing that is definitely known that everyone will agree with. At some point, we're all going to die. So I guess the answer to the question is, why did this person die? Is because he's a human, and humans die. I mean, what kind of question is, why did he die? So the question really is, why did he die on a raw food diet of clogged arteries? And what the person is really trying to get at is, if the raw food diet is supposed to be so great, and prevent diseases and all these different things, how did this person, number one, succumb to an illness or a disease? And number two, of all diseases, clogged arteries on a raw food diet. And this, from what I understand, this fellow was eating a fruitarian diet, meaning only fruits. And according to him, he was very strict at it. He had a strong desire to eat only fruits. From what I've seen, and I don't know much about him, but I think 11 years he was only eating fruits and no vegetables, no nuts and seeds, no supplements, didn't get his blood work checked or anything like that. And what I'm going to say is it's not about the raw diet. It's not about the raw diet. The body is pretty much a science experiment. With all technology and everything we have, there's still so many unknowns. And new discoveries are continuing to happen. The body is an ongoing experiment of how it reacts and what it does and what we do and everything else. We have to be investigators for ourselves in our current situations, in our own lives, for where we're at. What's going to give us the longevity and also the highest quality while we're here. That's what we have to figure out. And a lot of people will use the information to investigate that situation of how they can obtain that by using double-blind studies. They're using science. They're using experience of others in different situations. So there's different factors that people are using to try to come to a conclusion of the experiment for their own bodies. And for myself, I've come to the conclusion from my situation that eating 100% raw vegan diet, including vegetables, including sprouts, including supplements, exercise is extremely important. These things, from what I've been doing on this ongoing experiment is best for what's my body based on these factors of experience that I've had in my life. Now, as I get more data and more information, that can change. And I'm open to change. So if new information comes in or something's not getting the result I want, I am open to change. At the same time, I want to give enough time to experiment with what I've already figured out might be ideal or might work. As for this person who got apparently clogged arteries on a raw food diet, now I think the man was in his 60s, early 60s, and if that's the case, and he's been eating a raw food diet for 11 years, I could be completely wrong about that. But without making excuses, that means this man lived about 50 years on not a raw vegan diet, not a fruitarian diet. I don't know what his lifestyle was before that. And so much damage could happen in those 50 years. And going through the cleanse or the detox or whatever you want to call it of the next 11 years of being a fruitarian, there are so many factors there, so many issues. You know, somebody could say, why did he survive for 50 years not eating a fruitarian diet? You know, there's so many why questions. You know, then there's so many aspects of health other than just diet. See, that's another thing people don't understand. I know from my experiment in my life, if I didn't exercise, this experiment wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. I know for me, I need to build and strengthen my muscles for me to be successful on every level on this experiment we call life. I know I don't feel good from a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint, and everything if I don't get exercise. The other thing is sleep. I know on a consistent basis I can get by with very little sleep, but I do much better on every level when I get a good amount of good quality rest and sleep. So many factors. Now, for years when I was eating the version of the raw food diet, the way I was doing it, I guess it was working for that time, but then I realized that, hey, it's not working because my cholesterol, LDL, was elevated. And according to the average person, I wouldn't have considered being overweight, but I now believe I was overweight because of changes I've made and how I'm doing now. And I feel like I was just getting by all those years. I was eating way too much dehydrated food. I was eating way too much in general. And even prior to going on a daylight diet, I was eating way too late at night. I don't care if you call yourself a fruitarian, you're not going to get the best of it if you're eating late at night and before going to sleep. And then you got cases like I had a friend who was eating a raw food diet and he ended up getting cancer. And somebody said, why did he get cancer? And, you know, we could justify it in our mind and saying, well, if he wasn't eating raw, he would have got cancer a lot sooner. So it expanded his life to live long as all he did. And then we don't know what people are doing in the privacy of their own home. But for this particular man to have clogged arteries on a fruitarian diet, well, how can you get clogged arteries on a fruitarian diet? Well, often with the raw food diet, fat is an issue. People overconsume fat. Now, as for fruit, people think that, oh, as long as you're eating fruit, you can't overeat. And that's not necessarily true. You can overeat on fruit. It's very common that people do. Fat and sugar are two things people eat way too much of. And the quality of the fruit that most people are eating is not homegrown fruit. And it's not the healthiest fruit because if it's not homegrown, it's not picked ripe, and it creates many issues. But of all the issues, clogged arteries, I thought that only happened from fat. And apparently, if this man was eating a fruitarian diet with no fat, how did this happen? Well, as I said, the body's an amazing experiment, and there's still many unknowns out there. We believe that the only way you can get clogged arteries is by eating too much fat or processed fat or grease or animals and things like this. But we're basing our beliefs on what? On double-blind studies, or on other people that are eating a lot of meat and that are fat and overweight. There's factors of why we believe what we believe and where we get these things from. So obviously, if this man was truly eating the way he says he was eating, a fruitarian diet with no fat and no supplementation, and if he got clogged arteries, which I believe in a post that his wife or his partner wrote, said his arteries were clogged and it stopped his heart and he died. Well, obviously, it can happen. Again, I don't know what his arteries were like before he went on this diet. The connection of getting essential fatty acids and fats in our diet and the importance of them and how they work, it's an ongoing thing. Every couple of years, somebody changes up what that means and everything else. And I can tell you this, though. To figure out this experiment and avoid things like this from happening, it's important to use the technology we have, in my opinion, to monitor this life experiment. So, for example, even if I feel wonderful, that's not the only thing I'm going to use to determine. Let me get out of the sun here a little. That's not the only thing I'm going to use to determine if what I'm doing is working. And that's a common issue that I see. I see people just going by how they feel. By going how they feel. Look, a person can smoke crack and feel amazing while they're dealing with it. But it might not be all the time. But you can't just go by how you feel. You have to go by other factors. And I do believe the technology of blood tests are very helpful. Again, the way we read blood tests, the way we think about a blood test, the results the same for vegans versus non-vegans and so on, that's a good question. However, to neglect the technology we have or the investigation we have for our bodies to see if what we're doing is working, and to only solely go by how we feel, I believe people are making a mistake by neglecting getting a blood test. And, people ask, well, what blood test do I get and how do I get tested if I don't believe in health insurance and I don't go to the doctor or anything like this? Well, thankfully, through technology today, we don't need to go to a doctor to get blood test, to get a blood test. I said that like I was from another country. To get blood test. Now, to get a blood test, we don't need to go to a doctor. And how do we know a blood test to get? Well, if you're a vegan, let's say, you can go to any of these websites that do blood tests online, and you could type vegan profile blood test, and it'll give you all the major blood tests and anything, heart health, kidney health, any men's health, women over 60s health, any type of subject. Most of these websites have panels of blood tests you can take that are commonly known to show if what you're doing is working or not working. So that's what you want to do. So once a year, I might go on and I get a vegan profile of a blood test. And you order it online, and there's an address, a list of all the different laboratories. You go there, they test you, they do the blood test, and you get your results online. So there could be certain things that somebody ate that they were all of a sudden got food poisoning or something else. But if somebody is building up cancer or heart disease or diabetes or these things, usually the blood test is going to reveal that these things are brewing. Something is happening. And that's a great sign to give attention to that particular area and to possibly make a change. Now, we can't rush to these conclusions sometimes, but if I see something that's abnormal in my blood test, it doesn't necessarily mean what the average person is doing, but if all of a sudden something shoots up, I want to say, well, what did I do different in my diet? What did I do different in my lifestyle? Has something changed? I know people I would consult with that I've been friends with for a long time, Dr. Fred Bishey, Joel Furman, and several of these other uh, welly knowledge people that have to do with nutrition, and some of them are medical doctors that have a background in alternative health, to try to find out, well, what's going on? Why is this happening? So a couple of years ago, my LDL was high, but I felt amazing. And I was trying to figure it out. And then I went to Hippocrates Health Institute, and Brian Clement said, cut sugar out of your diet. You're eating too much fruit. You're eating too much fruit. I didn't think I was eating too much fruit, but he said I was eating too much fruit. I was having an issue with my LDL, so I cut out fruit. For the first time probably in my life, I didn't eat any fruit for 30 days. And I got blood tested before that and after that. Not only did my LDL not come down, it actually went up a little. And then in my research, I found, well, it's not the LDL because it's in relation to the HDL, and it's the ratio that matters, and it's not a bad thing to have high LDL, and you got all these different people saying different things about what this means, and you try to justify it in your mind, but I feel better knowing that I don't have high LDL. Well, finally, I came to the point it was not just that I was eating too much, but when I wrote my first book, The Raw Food Life, or The Raw Life, I said, don't eat fats together. Eat them separately. Don't eat avocados and nuts on the same day. When you eat nuts, soak the nuts. Don't overeat. And in one of my interviews with a fellow named Joseph, who got better from cancer on a Hippocrates diet, I explained to him, my diet and how much fat I was eating. He said, that's way too much. I took his advice. I cut avocados down to like a half a day. And when I ate nuts, I soaked them overnight before I consumed them. And I didn't eat nuts and avocados in the same meal. I stopped having nut-based dressings if I had nuts in my salad. And just making these adjustments. 30 days later, I took a blood test. My LDL, for the first time in a long time, came down. And I wasn't hiding anything from any of you, because it's not necessarily a bad thing if you have high LDL. Again, it's the ratio you want to look at. And for me, my HDL was low and my LDL was high. But if you have high LDL and high HDL, it's not as much of a concern from what they're saying now. Bottom line is, it's not about me here. You're asking about why this guy died of clogged arteries on a raw food diet. We don't know everything to know about this experiment we call the human body. But apparently, on a fruitarian diet, you can get clogged arteries. Maybe it had to do with what he was doing before. I don't know how much weight he lost. I don't know what he was dealing with. His partner says she'll come out and answer some questions after some time. She needs some time. She needs a break, and that's understandable. And whenever something like this happens, the conspiracy theories come out. Oh, this person was doing great, curing cancer and all these things, and just doing so wonderful that somebody tried to kill them because they didn't want this message getting out. Because there aren't too many people that truly are eating or have eaten a fruitarian diet long-term over the years, and somebody might find out some secret that will put the medical community out of business. So then you get all these theories. I won't call them conspiracy theories. I'll say theories. Maybe they're possible. Maybe they're not. Who knows? The point is, should we stop eating a fruitarian diet because we might get clogged arteries? Not necessarily. I mean, you should get a blood test and check out your cholesterol, see how things are looking. If nothing stands out, and you feel great, and your blood work's looking good, not really to change what you're doing. I tell everybody, if what you're doing is working for you, don't change. But if it's not working, change. For what I found works is not a fruitarian diet. I found I need the sprouts, the microgreens, I take supplementation, and I believe it's helpful. I'm trying to create a lifestyle where I can grow my own food. Look at this. Look, I'm trying to grow my own food. I have a lot of food that I'm trying to grow. And I consider sprouts my own food that I'm growing. So, and everyone has an opportunity to grow their own food through sprouting. So you know, if you don't have a garden or you live in a apartment, you can still sprout. So that's great. Anyway, my heart goes out to this person. And a couple years ago, there was another person who died on a supposedly raw food diet, a fruitarian diet. You know, we got to look at the number of calories somebody's getting to. If fasting is so great and somebody doesn't need a lot of calories, well, why does under eating become a concern for people? It shouldn't really be, right, if they're getting what they need. So that's something to consider. There are a lot of things to consider. And again, as I started this video, I'll say it again. Our body is a scientific experiment. And we can only go on our experience and scientific results of what's been proven already. However, we need to go beyond that, beyond the understandable. And for me, believing in the Bible, I believe our Creator created us in a certain way. And if we follow His plan for us, we come closer to His ideal, which says, know the plans He has for us. They're for good and not disaster, to give us a future and give us a hope. I don't think stage 4 cancer is a future and a hope. But I think as we follow His plan, who created us, who knows, He doesn't need to wait for scientific experiment and see double-blind studies to know what's best for us. Our Creator created us and knows what's best for us. And He said in Genesis 1:29 in the Bible, fruits and vegetables are the best thing for us. The fruit shall be our food, and the green herb should be our medicine. That's what His word says. And I believe that. But I also believe He didn't want us to eat at nighttime. If He did, He would have made fruits and vegetables glow in the dark. Before all this artificial electricity, we wouldn't be looking for food at night. We'd be getting ready for bed and sleeping. So it's my goal in life to get as close to His plan as possible, because I trust Him better than I trust myself. He is smarter than I am. And just as if my car breaks down, I'm going to take it to a mechanic, specifically the dealership that knows that particular make, and they're going to know the best remedy for it. And, you know, if my body breaks down, I'm going to go to my maker who created this variety or this model, this make, and I'm going to see what he tells me to do, and I'm going to try to get closer to that. I know He doesn't tell me to eat, or He doesn't want me to eat His creation. That wasn't His original plan. He doesn't want me to eat animals. I know He doesn't want me to eat late at night. I know He's giving me rest, and He says that's a great thing. So, you know, I'm trying to stick as close to that. I can't give an example or an answer of why this particular person's scientific experiment stopped and his heart failed him and he died. I can say the more information we have to determine how our scientific experiment is going, the better it is. And maybe this person did monitor their health, maybe not, but from what I heard briefly was that they didn't do blood tests. And that's not saying you can do blood tests and you won't have an issue. But what it will do is it'll help you have more information to make your decisions of what you're doing and what you need to do. And hopefully that'll help you. All right? So there's my answer. And again, my heart goes out to the family. And in no way do I think somebody should stop eating a vegan diet, a raw food diet, or even perhaps a fruitarian diet if they're getting the results that they're seeking. You know, just monitor it. Monitor it better. And make sure you're not neglecting the things you need to do to fix it if you see something wrong. Don't let a title or a particular way of thinking keep you from changing what you need to do to improve something that you see might be an issue. All right, everybody, thank you for your question. Have a great day, and If you have more comments or questions, post them below. Have a great one.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the raw life health.